Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Vince D'Addario. That is Jesse Stiers. And this will be one of two shows this week where we will be without Sean Stiers. Today, I believe he is on a jet plane heading over to the West Coast because the Lady Irish have a 2-game swing out in California. And so when we are joined by Sean, he will be in his hotel room tomorrow and Friday because they have a game on Thursday and Sunday. And so should be an interesting swing for the Lady Irish. They probably need to go 2-0, Jesse, and we can always jump into that if people want us to talk about women's basketball. But then tonight, there is a men's basketball game. The men tip off with Virginia tonight at 7. And you can hear all the action right here on WSBT. And so we will be signing off about 6:30 in time for the pregame show that takes place. So a half-hour pregame show prior to the men tipping off at 7 o'clock. And Jesse, I know you are in Cleveland, and I'm sure there is some winter weather your way, but it's like Snowmageddon over here. I can't remember the last time I was at school. So how is it in your neck of the woods? And because we didn't have school today, and it said because of wind chill and road conditions and things like that. And then tomorrow it's supposed to be 10 degrees colder. So I don't know what the heck is going on around here. How's it going in Cleveland?
Yeah, pretty similar conditions. I know all the schools have been closed for the same reasons. Really, really cold temperatures. We have like a foot of snow on the ground. And we just got a National Weather Service emergency alert on our iPhone. Buddy. Snow squall warning. Have you ever heard of a snow squall warning?
I have not. That's exciting.
I don't even know what that word means.
That's exciting. I know a squall is some sort of a weather term, but I got nothing. So
yeah, I have to Google real quick what snow squall means. It says it's a brief, intense burst of heavy snow accompanied by strong, gusty winds that create whiteout conditions. So that is what we have going on right now. There's a lot of snow squalling around in the air, creating whiteout conditions. I know if you're a local teacher, you're probably elated. You don't have to do,
Yeah.
Are those days made up?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why it's a mixed emotion type of situation, because the state of Indiana allows 3 e-learning days a year. And once you use those up, you're just tacking them on to the end. And so that's where we're at as far as the corporation that I work in. They have now tacked on 2 extra days to the end of the year. And so the original end of school was supposed to be on a Thursday. Now it's going to be on a Monday. Unless, then there's like waivers you can apply for with the state because it's a state of emergency, all that kind of. So who knows? But like, it's exciting because there's no e-learning. The kids actually get to have a snow day. They're not doing it, they're relaxing, doing whatever, but it's like we're enjoying it now, but we'll be paying for it later.
Yeah, I remember my senior year, I believe it was. That was like when we actually had state of emergency, right? And like the whole.
The last time we had, it was what did you graduate? What year?
14. So it would have been the winter of 13.
Yep. 13-14 was the last time that we had a significant snowfall.
I just remember it being at the end of the school year, and the seniors were like, yeah, you're not catching us for those 5 days that we're supposed to be here. Our grades are turned in, everything's good. You can't,
it's like,
because that's the thing, is they can't hold it. Like if you're a junior or sophomore or freshman, they'll hold it against you because you're coming back to the same school the next year. All the seniors, we just banded together and said, yeah, we're not serving those those final snow days. You can catch us later.
It's going to be interesting for sure, because everybody knows those extra days, then people just have checked out. Teachers have checked out. The students have checked out. The seniors are literally physically checked out. And so it is a situation where, okay, we're adding those days because we're supposed to. What are we really getting accomplished? Like that's the bigger question, because it's not like days in January and February where you're still trying to cram for state testing and all that fun stuff.
You're in the grind.
Yeah, you're in the grind. You're not in the grind on June 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever it is. So Wait, we'll see what happens. I'm not complaining. It is what it is. I've gotten to sleep in the last couple of days, so good for all the teachers out there. But hey, there's light at the
You've been
end.
working out with your spare time, going to the gym.
Clearly really working out with my spare. I went to the movies today. Yes, that's what I did today.
Have you seen Marty Supreme yet? I know my dad saw it over the weekend. I convinced him. He said it was really good.
What Marty Supreme? What is that about?
It's about a table tennis player, ping pong player.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
Played by Timothy Chalamet. He's a younger actor.
That's right. I actually saw Song Sung Blue today. That has Kate Hudson and I can't Wolverine. Why I don't know, his name escapes me at the present.
Yeah.
But anyway, they're like a Neil Diamond cover band and all. It's got that toe tapping music. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It was me and 4 of my closest friends. Not really, just 4 strangers in a theater together because it's nasty weather. We probably shouldn't be driving. So, but I had to get out of the house, man. Had to get out of the house.
So you went solo to the movie?
I did. I went solo. Couldn't convince the wife to go with me. So, yes, Hugh Jackman tattoo. Thank you very much. It was Hugh Jackman. Did a great job. Did a really, really good job. He did all of his own singing, you could tell. So it was impressive. But anyway, we are a sports talk radio show. We should.
Michael has told you that a couple times.
I know. Michael's upset with me, and it's okay. I mean, Michael, it is what it is, man. But they give us the reins, and so we can talk about whatever we want. Maybe that's a mistake on the part of the higher ups.
And Brian didn't have a show today, so we're really off the rails.
I know, seriously, that's a lot of pressure on the 2 of us to be the solo show of the day. But everybody's, I'm sure, here ready to talk about some Notre Dame football on a Tuesday in January, and that's what we're gonna do. And we had a listener during our mailbag day the other day basically request this topic, which is why we're going to do it, because this is not normally a topic that we would do in the middle of January, especially considering after we decided we were going to do this topic, there's been a change on the coaching staff, by the way. And so there's a vacancy currently on the defensive coaching staff at defensive backs coach. And so Anthony Solomon wanted us to rank the assistant coaches on the current staff. And then Andre kind of added to it. And we can kind of talk about this as well. He said, what grade would you give each Irish coach this year? And what grade would you need to get from them to be national champions next year? Okay. We're not necessarily going to grade the coaches per se, but that's going to be part of the discussion. Because
I'll throw my grades in there.
Yeah. I mean, listen, there are some coaches here, and we'll talk about it. There are some coaches who haven't really had enough time to prove to me that they're a really good coach. But 26 is going to tell me a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? And again, like I said, there's a vacancy in one of the coaching staff. So, okay, great. Michael loves me. I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you very much. And that we might have to take you up on that offer, Michael. I don't know if we're allowed to say that on the air or not, even though we are sponsored by Budweiser. But anyway, we are going to go through the coaching staff. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to do the offensive coaches first because there's more of them. Okay. Then we are going to take a break, and then we're going to talk defensive coaches / special teams. There's less defensive coaches, even more so now that there's a vacancy for defensive backs. And so we're going to throw Marty Biaggi in with the defensive coaches. And then we're going to combine it all together, and we're going to do one list of the 9 currently employed assistant coaches on the Notre Dame staff. So that's how we're going to do it, Jesse. And we are going to do it kind of like we're doing a fantasy draft. We're going to snake through. All right. And since Jesse is the co-host today, I'm going to give him first pick of the offensive coaches. And then I'll go, then he'll go, and we'll talk about whether we agree, we disagree, they should be higher, lower, it's exactly where we should have them, whatever. Does it sound like a plan?
Yeah, that sounds great to me.
All right, man. So let's just dive right in. Offensive coaches Let's put them in order. And it can be the reasoning that you put them wherever you're going to put them can be yours. Like it's whatever you think they should be, why they should be there, those kinds of things. I was talking to somebody about it today, and it was like, okay, we ranking them with the job that they're doing? Are we giving them a letter grade, or, whatever? Your criteria is your criteria. It can be whatever you want. And so I throw it to you, sir. You have the first pick, offensive coaches. Who is your pick to be the top offensive assistant coach at Notre Dame?
Yeah, my top offensive coach at Notre Dame has to be Mike Denbrock. I think that when you're talking about, an offense that has been really potent over the last, couple of years, the performance of Riley Leonard, of CJ Carr, some of the best quarterback play that we've seen in a while, getting to a national championship, those sort of things, that falls on, to me, the offensive coordinator. And so I'm going to go with Mike Denbrock at number one. We know the track record he had at LSU. They won a national championship. I don't think they won it with him. But Jaden Daniels still won.
He got the Heisman Trophy. Yeah, he got the Heisman Trophy winner when he was there.
Still had, he had 2,000-yard receivers that ended up going on to the NFL. And then he came over to Notre Dame, and, while the passing attack probably wasn't quite there yet, and still isn't quite there yet, honestly, as well, I think given kind of the circumstances and given, the parameters to play with, obviously having, a Heisman level running back certainly helps. Having a backup running back that is also going to probably go in the second or third round of this NFL draft also, doesn't hurt as well. But the way that he was able to kind of manipulate his attack and be more of a run potent team, knowing that he is probably a more passing potent guy. If you ask them, they'll tell you that they want to be balanced, but I would say he comes more so from the passing tree. And so I love Mike Denbrock and what he's been able to accomplish so far. And I think we are now getting more of the reinforcements that he would like on the offensive side of the ball in terms of skill position. So I'm really anxious to see where this goes in the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Mike Denbrock was my number one choice as well on the offensive side of the football. I just think that, they go as he goes. Now, is he a perfect coach? No. Would I have liked to see a more aggressive offensive game plan in game number one last year? Yes, no doubt about it. There were times where, I thought they got a little bit too conservative, but I think he's also kind of feeling out his major weapon that is CJ Carr and figuring out what he can and can't do and what that looks like. And I'm very, very curious and excited to see what that looks like with a whole offseason of knowing who CJ Carr is, knowing who your quarterback is going to be, and what that looks like going into 2026, especially with the mantra of, basically scorched earth and, leave no prisoners kind of a mentality. They're going to put up some points, and that is going to be a very potent offense that is going to put up those points. And so I have the utmost respect for Mike Denbrock, not only for what he's done at Notre Dame and the other two stops that he's been here, but obviously what he did when he was at Cincinnati, what he did when he was at LSU, and obviously now that he's back at Notre Dame. Mike Denbrock's the number one guy. The offense is going to go as Mike Denbrock goes, and I think he's a good person. I think he's a good coach. I think that this is where he belongs, in the number one slot. And I'm excited to see what this offense looks like going into next year. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Mike Denbrock is the one calling the shots. And so how does he handle being the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman when we know, kind of Marcus Freeman's tendency is to, run the ball, possess the ball,
don't turn it over,
don't make mistakes, that kind of thing. Yeah, versus Mike Denbrock probably wanting to open it up a little bit more.
He wants to air it out.
Yeah, and having a quarterback that does not have that mentality of hand it off.
Well, and I think that's where it's very respectable how he was able to manage CJ Carr this season, because he's a gunslinger. He wants to be a gunslinger, and you have a head coach who doesn't necessarily want him to be those things. And maybe not necessarily be those things is the best way to put it, but I think Marcus Ruin wants it to be situational when the time calls for it.
Right.
And so how do you manage that as a play caller, play designer that wants to gunsling? You have a gunsling quarterback that has that mentality, but you have a head coach that kind of wants you to tamper it down a little bit. And so I think that was a really tough line for him to, kind of teeter-totter between this season. And then also, with someone like CJ Carr, you don't want to cut him absolutely loose early on, him go through a lot of struggles, and now the rest of his season or growth, he's kind of in the back of his mind, second guessing himself, thinking about, should I do this? Should I do this? Should I not do that? And so I thought it was really impressive that he was able to kind of manage that whole situation, easing CJ Carr into it, but doing it in a way that's still effective, that still allows him to gunsling, that still allows him to, put pressure on the defense over the top, that sort of situation. I think if we're talking about Mike Denbrock's downfalls or things that I'd like to see improvement on going into next season, it's 100% the creativity within the red zone and short yardage situations. Watched a lot of playoff football this weekend, and the way that Seattle moved Jackson Smith and Jigba around and got him open, it's like I was texting one of my friends because we had money on the Rams, and I was like, how is the guy that is literally the best player on offense just consistently wide open? The Rams know who they're supposed to cover, and they know that that's the guy that can't get open. But when you can scheme so well that it's like, how is this guy getting open when he's the guy that they're supposed to be double teaming? That's what I want to see a little bit more out of Mike Denbrock. I want to see that creativity, and I want to see him highlight Notre Dame's premier players in those situations, because I think it was really easy when you had Riley Leonard. Riley Leonard's a tough boy. He's liquid like, he can turn and get, you know what I mean? Like he can, it was just QB power or QB, sprint out on the outside.
He didn't have to be super creative when it came to short yardage, right? I mean, yeah.
And we saw that this year.
Yeah, agreed. No, I agree with that. And, I want to get more into the running back situation when we talk about Jawan Sider and more specifics to those positions when we get there. But overall, this is going to be a very, very interesting year for a lot of coaches on the offensive side of the football, because you've got some superstars that have left. You've got some superstars that are still around that now have experience under their belt, things like that. You've got some potential superstars coming in the transfer portal. So what is this going to look like? And at the end of the day, I mean, let's be honest, Mike Denbrock is the head coach of the offense, and the offense is going to go as Mike Denbrock goes. And so what is that going to look like? Right now, I'll push all my chips in on Mike Denbrock. Like, I feel very comfortable doing that and giving him an entire offseason with what he knows he has, not just the myth of what he has, right? Like this time last year, it was like, okay, I got two talented kids competing at quarterback. Ideally, CJ Carr probably fits the best in what I want to do. But then if, Kenny Minchie is the quarterback, then, this is the kind of offense that we're going to run, and this is how we're going to do it, that kind of a thing. So there's it's almost like preparing for two different offenses. And then you get to the fall, it's probably a longer competition than it needs to be, all of those kinds of things. And then you're kind of feeling it out as the season goes along. And so now you've got an entire offseason knowing what you've got offensively and planning for it in that fashion. So very excited to see what Mike Denbrock has to do. So Mike Denbrock is our number one pick. We both agree on it. We're going to move over to our number two pick, which already is probably going to be controversial. But the reason that I did it is because first, let me just say who it is. I'm going to pick Gino Guidugli here as my number two pick on the offensive side of the football. And again, that's going to surprise some people, and I'm okay with that. But I've got to look at the body of work with how long he's been here. He's done a really good job of managing the quarterback room with the transfers that have come in, right? He's dealt with transfer quarterbacks his entire tenure here, while also preparing guys that have come in as freshmen. And so now you've got CJ Carr here, who, if you're going to give him all kinds of credit for being this great quarterback and the development and all that, well, you've got to give some love to Gino Guidugli then. I realize that CJ Carr does a lot of stuff outside of the framework of the program, and he comes from a coach's family and all of those different things. And he is a special player regardless of who his coach is. But you also have to give credit to his coach, right? Because he is the one that is giving him this information. He's coaching him up on a daily basis, all of these different things. So the way I see it is Gino Guidugli has done a great job managing transfers as they come in, while also keeping the guys that are homegrown involved and learning. And now he's got a homegrown kid who is going to be in his third year in the program in 26, a returning starter. You got to give some credit to Gino Guidugli at this point for a potentially generational type quarterback that is literally at the helm of this offense and is going to be just, spitting footballs all over the place to really good athletes.
So this is going to be where we disagree.
That's okay.
First,
bring it.
And I acknowledge and I agree with everything you said, and this is gonna ruffle some feathers, but
you're going Joe Rudolph. I could just tell by the look on your face.
But this is the Jesse Stiers rankings, and Joe Rudolph is number 2 for me because I feel like he has battled through. Where do I want to attack this first? His pool of players has been a really drastic mixture of a lot of young talent and a lot of veteran guys along the offensive line. And I think that he's kind of gone against, maybe the norm or some backlash he's received on what group of players is the best group of players. And I think that the most impressive thing I've seen out of Joe Rudolph is the offensive line has been banged up the last 2 or 3 seasons. Banged up.
I just want to interrupt you for just a quick second. Let's say, okay, so we had Denbrock 1. I picked Gino Guidugli 2. Now it kind of goes back to you. You're going to go Joe Rudolph number 3 because you would have had him as number 2.
Right.
And
I would just flip-flop Gino and
that's
Joe.
Hey, that's totally fine. I've got Joe as my number 3. So you and I are on the same page. And so for our quote-unquote rankings for tonight, it'll be Gino and then it'll be Joe. And now we're talking about Joe Rudolph. So continue, sir. But that'll be our ranking here moving forward.
And I think that how he's able to respond in the face of all those injuries and kind of plug and play and it not be catastrophic. Like that's the thing that is so important for me is both last season going into the playoffs and this season towards the tail end, a lot of guys started to have to shuffle around because of injuries. And did the offense really lose a beat? Did you ever look and say, man, the O-line really let us down that game or the O-line really screwed us? Did they make some mistakes? Sure. That's every offensive line unit on every play. Like you're not going to be perfect. But given the pool that he's attracted, I don't think Notre Dame has taken a step back in being an offensive line U type university where they're cranking out like Emil Wagner and who else is going to get drafted this year? Ashton Craig, I believe.
No, he's still here.
I can't think of the other 2 of the guys into the draft. Both of those guys are going to get drafted. And so to me, the only thing that I would have reserve about is I'd like to see a little bit more in the player development area, a little bit more. But for the level of success that Notre Dame needs to sustain, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and the way that they were able to run the ball the last 2 seasons, really impressed with Joe Rudolph.
Look, I there are a lot of Joe Rudolph detractors out there, and I have no problem with that whatsoever. Billy Schrouth was the one that you were looking for. And I understand that. He's still an excellent recruiter at offensive line. So that does go into this, by the way. And so that's why I have him as high as I do. I'm not enthusiastic about where he places guys, but I will say they do develop there. They do get better. Anthony Knapp, whether we can agree or disagree with whether he is placed properly at tackle, he's getting a lot of love for playing some left tackle now. And he's been there for 2 years, and he got markedly better from his freshman year to his sophomore year.
Markedly better.
Okay. And so we can say that he belongs as an interior offensive lineman all we want, and I still believe that, but he's gotten better as a tackle because he's a good football player, right? And there's talent across the board. There's talent in the 2 deep. He's recruited that talent. And so I've got to give credit where it's due. That's why I had him in the 3 spot, because he does bring a ton of talent in here. He's able to put guys in position to be successful. And so that's why he's there. And listen, he's going to have an opportunity this year because there's going to be some guys that he definitely recruited. They're going to have to be in the starting lineup. And what does that look like? And can they play together and all of those kinds of different things? Cool. I get that. So, these rankings could definitely change from year to year, but as of right now, that's where I would have Joe Rudolph. My pick is next, and of course, we're running long because that's what we do. Jaywan Sider is my next pick, and so I'll slot him into the 4 hole. The reason I have him below Joe Rudolph is because he walked into Notre Dame, and I'm talking about what he did at Notre Dame. And so he walked into Notre Dame, and they basically handed him the keys to an absolute Ferrari.
You couldn't mess up.
At running back, right? I mean, and we knew
Vince I could walk in there and probably been at least,
100%. Look, this is absolutely correct. And so we're going to get a great idea because, look, there's still talented guys in the room there that he has had to develop over the past year. What is that going to look like during the season from a rotation standpoint? All of those different things. I think Jaywan Sider still has keys to a pretty darn good room. This is still a sports car type of room, right? But last year, this was a sports car type of room that had a ton of experience as well. Now, this room doesn't have the experience. They have talent, but they don't have the experience. And so Josh is saying he's going to reserve judgment for Rudolph after he sees how the O-line performs without Schrouth and Wagner. Awesome. I understand that. My judgment is reserved for Jaywan Sider because I want to see what he does without the 2 guys that are going to be playing on Sundays here in a few months. And so that's why he's at where he's at for me in the 4 hole, because he just came in last year and just don't screw it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now we're going to
see a really good coach.
Yeah.
You're a really good recruiter. like you had Jeremiah Love and Jarian Price.
Correct.
You just had to walk in and make sure you just didn't screw it up, right?
Correct.
And I think the only thing that you could say that he reasonably changed is there was no more 3rd-man rotation with Aeneas Williams. And I don't know if that's because Jeremiah Love got better on 3rd and 4th downs.
Which he did.
He did
get better. Yep.
And so maybe he did develop him in those areas and helped him, get better in those areas, which naturally took playing a time away from Aeneas Williams. And so you that's how much did that go into it? How much did he develop Love and Price to the point that they didn't need to use Aeneas Williams? But like you said, the room is still incredibly talented. This is a big judgment year for him. This is where you learn. This is where we find out about Jaywan Sider, the coach, not the recruiter,
right?
Maybe not the developer, but the coach. How we see, do we go back to a 3-man rotation?
Right.
Is it a 2-man rotation? How are they situationally going to be used? Is it going to be like a 1-2 punch? That is all for him to decide. And I'm really curious and anxious to see how that turns out.
Yep, absolutely. This is going to be a very defining year for Joe Rudolph and Jaywan Sider, in my opinion. No doubt about that. The pick is yours here coming up, and there's only one guy left, and it's Mike Brown. So
yeah,
go ahead on Mike Brown, and then we'll take a break.
I think this is a huge year for Mike Brown. I think that Mike Brown has done a better job at the recruiting side of things. I don't know where this disconnect goes, and maybe I don't want to sit up here and blame this all on Mike Brown, but there's just not enough production from the wide receiver position right now. Consistent wide receiver production. I need a 1,000-yard receiver, man. I need that go-to, all else things fail, who we getting the ball to when we need a first down on third down, right? I thought he did a really good job with Malachi Fields this year, and how they utilized him. But there's a lot of talent in that room. There's especially more talent now.
Sure.
And so this is a big year for development and on-field production for Mike Brown, because I do think he's done a good job of recruiting, and I do think that the wide receivers are running better routes and they are more technically sound. But at some point, that has to turn into raw statistics, numbers, production on the field.
I mean, he's got a 5-man, I believe, wide receiver recruiting class coming in 26. So, I mean, it's a ton of guys. There's definitely the volume is definitely there. We can't say that he wasn't involved in bringing over 2 elite guys from Ohio State, because I'm sure that he was. And so, what is he going to do with that? What is he going to do with this Ohio State talent? What is he going to do with the talent that's already here, in the room? We can say that he has helped develop Faison. I think that's legitimate. We can say that. Faison was an afterthought when he got to Notre Dame. He is now like the leading receiver coming back. He's going to focus on football. He's not going to play lacrosse anymore. So now Mike Brown is going to get Jordan Faison all spring. So that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Jaden Grayhouse, they obviously put him on a shelf for a reason last year to preserve his eligibility. Let's see if that pays off, moving forward. How are the transfers going to fit in? How are these young guys going to fit in? That's a lot on Mike Brown. We're going to find out a lot about Mike Brown during the offseason, during spring ball, and during the 26 season. And so I would say the last 3 guys, to be honest with you, are guys we're all going to find out a lot about, right? Joe Rudolph, Mike Brown, Jawan Sider. We're going to find out a lot about all 3 of those guys in the 26 season, because a lot of things have to go in the right direction, obviously, for Notre Dame to have the season that everybody wants them to have in 2026. So that is our offensive coaches ranking. We've got Mike Denbrock at 1, Gino Guidugli at 2, Joe Rudolph at 3. We had Jawan Sider at 4, and we have Mike Brown at 5. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to do the defensive coaches and special teams. They're going to be all involved in one because there's so many less of them and one vacancy. And so we will do that on the flip side. You're listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I am Vince D'Addario, joined with me, like always, when Sean Stiers is out of town, Jesse Stiers. And we are going to take you guys up to, we got about 45 minutes left, give or take. There is a Notre Dame men's basketball game here in a little over an hour. They tip off with, I believe, Virginia at 7 o'clock. So you can stay tuned for that. You'll hear all the action right here on WSBT. So you definitely want to listen to the men who I believe are on a little bit of a hot streak, like very little, in meaning they won one game against Boston College, in which they were down by a bunch.
They were down big and actually had to come back in that game, Vince.
I almost turned it off. I was like, oh, here we go again. But that was not the case. They ended up coming back. They ended up winning that game by 4 points, I believe, 68-64. And so they defended the home court against Boston College. They get that opportunity once again tonight against Virginia at 7 o'clock. And hopefully they can take the Cavaliers out on their on Notre Dame's home floor at Purcell Pavilion. So we'll see what happens there. Again, pregame starts at 6:30 with a tip-off of 7 o'clock. Jesse, we have been discussing the Notre Dame assistant coaches, and we kind of put this together, this plan. And like I said, it was driven by a listener who asked us this question in a mailbag, and it's a little bit too complicated to dissect in a mailbag question. And so we're like, well, let's do it on Tuesday when Sean's going to be out of town. Let's get after it. Between then and now, Notre Dame lost their defensive backs coach, and Mike Mickens, who is off to the Baltimore Ravens. And so there is a vacancy on the defensive side of the football. And so we don't have as many coaches to rank over on defense, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. I understand from what I'm hearing, the rumblings that are out there, that Notre Dame is attempting to hit a home run with their defensive backs coach. So we'll see what happens there. And I know that Notre Dame is moving quickly in that regard because there's a lot of coaches changing hands in the NFL, and the dust has not settled in that level of things. And so I know that Notre Dame is wanting to move kind of fast here and get somebody in to take the place of Mike Mickens. And so they are diligently working towards that end. But in the meantime, we've got 4 coaches that we are going to rank on the defensive side of the football. And we decided to also throw in Marty Biaggi, the special teams coordinator, because he is the assistant safeties coach as well. And so he kind of belongs with the defense. And so he's going to be part of these rankings as well. Again, 4 coaches to rank. Jesse, I will give you the honors once again. You can bust out whoever you think is the best defensive coach that Notre Dame has. I think we can all say that if this was a week ago, Mike Mickens probably would have been in our leadoff slot. But that is not the case here. So who now? Oh, that's a Chicago Cubs hat, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I thought it was a Cleveland hat. I dig that hat. I like that.
Little Cubs.
Yeah, I like that hat now. I wasn't sure before. The first thing I thought it was a cathedral hat, because they're the C and they put the little shamrock right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad to see that it's not cathedral nor Cleveland. And
I'll give you the close up.
It even says something in the C. Chicago. Nice. It's well done.
Thank you. It's very old school kind of looking. I asked for it for Christmas and I was very happy to get it. So
nice. I dig it. You're always the man with the hats. I appreciate that. Okay, back to business here. This is what happens when we can see each other during a show. We have to talk about what we're wearing. But defensive coaches, you've got the number 1 pick. Who are you putting in the number 1 slot on the defensive side of the football?
Yeah, I think it has to be Al Washington. The guy is recruited at a very high level. We've seen the on-field development performance the last couple seasons. Thought the defensive line unit was very strong last season. He was very active in the transfer portal, filled the needs that he needed to with Riley Mills, Howard Cross going away. But I think the most promising thing I saw was the production from the young players on the edge, Boubacar Traore. I think we're going to see more of that this season with the development of those young players. And again, they're recruiting very high-level edge players. Those are the guys who get paid a lot of money in the NFL, Vince, defensive ends. And those are the guys who are gonna get you the number 1 ranking on the Irish Breakdown show at the college level. So And I think it's just a true testament to him that he's gotten, reached out to about multiple,
Yeah.
vacancies for defensive coordinator positions. He's obviously well respected in the college football circles. And he's so much respected amongst the Notre Dame staff that he is being promoted to the full-time linebackers coach. And that is not a easy task,
Yeah.
especially with the type of defense Notre Dame runs. There's a ton of talent at the linebacker position. And I'm just really eager and excited to see how he can take this linebacker group to the next level.
Positional flexibility as a coach is big. And I know that, when coaches go from place to place and, they coach different positions. Mike Denbrock has obviously coached tight ends. He's coached wide receivers. He's coached quarterbacks. These guys have positional flexibility in their resume, but being able to go from the defensive line to linebackers and both playing at an elite level too, is what I think is huge. And, Al Washington got a lot of guff for his recruiting early on when he was here. I think that has changed over the last couple of years, rightfully so. I think he's done a very good job on the recruiting trail. I think he did an excellent job, whether it was Charlie Partridge or a combination of Partridge and Al Washington and Marcus Freeman, what they were able to do in the transfer portal, this offseason, shoring up the defensive line. And like you said, the guys that he has coming back on the edge, this is going to be a defensive line to be reckoned with. And he's leaving a very, very loaded and stacked room for Charlie Partridge when he takes over. And then he goes to a linebacker room that is also loaded and stacked, frankly. And you're right. Can he take them to another level, which I think is going to be a lot of fun to watch. And so, what is this going to look like with him as the linebacker coach? But I think this also broadens his resume for when he wants to be a defensive coordinator someday, when he wants to be a head coach. He's taking those interviews now. I think that he's doing a good job to make himself even more marketable. And I just don't see, we talked about this with Jawan Sider in the running back room last year. I don't see how he could screw up the linebacker room. I don't see how he could screw it up. Like, these guys have so much talent. They're so good this year, and there's a bunch of guys behind them that are also really, really good. And so what does this linebacker room look like with Al Washington at the helm? He's clearly my number one as well. I think that's a great pick on your part.
I think for both Washington and Partridge, these are you always, whenever you work, at least a lot of what kind of my managers and bosses preach to me is you always want to leave things better than what you left it, right? And I think Al Washington did a really good job of leaving that room as such a desirable and attractable position that someone like Partridge would want to part ways with the NFL and come back to the college. Like, you don't just walk back into college to any defensive line room,
right?
And so you got to give kudos to Al Washington for really putting the room in a good spot for Charlie Partridge. And so I think for both of these guys, it's not necessarily because the talent's there.
Yeah.
What the defensive line group was able to do in the transfer portal, extremely respectable. And I think what you want now is a fresh perspective or lens on things in ways that Partridge can enhance that Washington couldn't, or maybe he just notices things that Washington didn't. And the same thing goes for Washington.
Sure.
And Bola is now you've got a fresh perspective. You've been around these guys a long time. Maybe you have a new way that can truly enhance how Jalen Sneed plays on the field, how Drake Bowen plays on the field, just unlocking, just those extra little pieces that help you when you're trying to be a team to win a national championship. So for both of those guys, that's what I'm most looking forward to, is what kind of perspective or lens are they looking through that can enhance the overall defensive line and linebacker room.
It's going to be fun to watch for sure. But Al Washington is a unanimous number one selection here. I've got the number 2 pick. And like you, being controversial with wanting to have Joe Rudolph towards the top of your list, I'm sure this is going to be controversial, and I'm okay with it. But I've got Chris Ash in the number 2 hole here. And now remember, We basically have 4
Is this
coaches
more
to choose
kudos to 2 or more of a slight to 3?
It depends on how you look at it, I suppose, to be honest with you. I think Chris Ash got a lot of deserved and undeserved, more deserved than undeserved, but he got a lot of deserved crap early on in the season, right? We were all very unhappy with the way the defense was playing, especially with the amount of talent that was over there. No doubt about it. But if you're going to give him crap for the way they played early, you've got to give him credit for the way they played late.
And the changes that were made.
Correct. And whether they came from Marcus Freeman, whether they were, a team effort with Mike Mickens and Al Washington and whatever, okay. He's still the defensive coordinator. And so if he's going to get the garbage, he also has to get some of the praise as well. And I'm okay with that. And he's still the defensive coordinator. He's still in charge of that defense. And so I think he came to a very good place with those other assistants and with Marcus Freeman, understanding what he had on the defensive side of the football and playing up to that and playing to that potential. We all would have loved for that to have been the case earlier on in the season, right? All of us, no doubt about it. I would have loved for them not to give up 40 plus points to Texas A&M in week number 2. No doubt about it. But it is what it was. He got better. That's what we want out of our coaches, right? That's what we want out of people anywhere in our lives. We want them to get better. And he got better. He got markedly better. What is he going to do in 2026? Big question mark, right? There's still a ton of talent on this defensive side of the football. They should come out of the gate swinging. No doubt about it. I hope that's the case. I really do. But I got to give Chris Ash the credit for what he did in, 9.5 games or so. And still understanding the first 2.5 were not good, but the last 9.5 were really good. And so that's why I put him in the number 2 spot, Jess.
Yeah, and I agree with a lot of what you were saying, and I don't want to get super long-winded about Chris Ash, but I probably will. So just, strap in for the ride here a little bit. Chris Ash, a guy who had been so replaced from the college level, the NFL is largely a zone league. Like, it just is. And I think that was a big reason why Marcus Freeman was attracted to him. He had success, obviously, at Ohio State as co-defensive coordinator. He went on and got a ton of good experience in the NFL. And the NFL is just more of a zone league. It's just there's more, the quarterbacks are better, the wide receivers are better, everyone's better at the NFL level, and that requires naturally more zone. And I think there was an understanding that Chris Ash was going to bring some of that concept with him to Notre Dame on top of what Notre Dame already does really well, and that's being a man team. And I think that there was a disconnect early, and this is just my opinion, there was a disconnect early on with kind of what he was expected to do while still maintaining the identity of this defense. And I think the identity of the defense got lost in translation early on because Chris Ash was so heavy set on, we need to be better at zone, we need to run more zone, da-da-da-da. Okay, that's situational. We're not doing that the first 2 games of the year and the most important games of the year when really, it's not necessarily time to be kind of experimenting or implementing those sort of things. And then it affected the rest. It affected the defensive line. It affected, the linebackers because they weren't able to create pressure and then give, the defensive or the secondary kind of more time. And I think another big part of this was early on, there was some turnover in the secondary. There were some injuries going on. And the biggest thing that I can give kudos to Chris Ash is by the time the season was over, we 100% knew who the best player was at every secondary position. There was no question about it. Injuries aside, because, Tay Johnson ended up getting hurt, had to miss a couple games. But early on, when you're introducing new scheme, new personnel in the portal, younger guys trying to get them in. And on top of that, you're playing freaking at Miami and at home against Texas A&M. Like, that's not an easy task. That would be a daunting task for a lot of people. And so, yes, he did make his mistakes. And did he probably cost Notre Dame you could say one of those 2 losses? He probably cost them. I don't necessarily want to say he cost them both of them, but he definitely cost them one of them. But like you said, if you're going to give him crap early on, you have to give him his flowers and praises for figuring out later down the season.
Yep.
And they ended up being a really freaking good defense.
Right.
And a defense that was like elite in the run game, run stopping basically. And that's a defense that has to play the triple option, like they had those numbers with having to play a triple option team. So I think Chris Ash had a lot to kind of sift through, sort through early on, kind of, and establish himself, like he was still the new guy at Notre Dame. He was still the new guy on the staff. And I think he did a really good job by the time the season ended of understanding what his personnel was, getting the best personnel on the field, and obviously getting the most out of his personnel. So that's where I'll leave that conversation.
So let's move on from Chris Ash in the number 2 spot of our rankings. We're coming up on the top of the hour here in just a second. You've got the 3 hole here. You've got the 3 pick. So I'm going to leave it up to you because there's 2 different ways. Obviously, you could go with this. We got Marty Biaggi still on the board, and we've got Charlie Partridge still on the board. Which way are you going with the number 3 spot?
I'm going to go Marty Biaggi at the number 3 spot, just because Partridge is a new guy. Like, what do we actually kind of know about him and what he wants to do, implement, what kind of lens he's going to be looking through for the defensive line, how he's going to enhance, all those sort of things. But Marty Biaggi, I think he's schematically one of the best special teams coordinators in the country.
Agreed.
In terms of how he actually, from day one to end of season, makes some of these players better, I think that's a little bit up in the air. We've seen consistent issues with the kicking game, not only with place kicking, but field goal kicking. I would say I thought the punting got better this season. I thought Rendell took some leaps. I don't know how much of that was because of Marty Biaggi, but the place kicking and the field goal kicking, and especially the field goal operation, which is abysmal at times during the season. But the way that they, against USC, Jadarian Price did return a kickoff. They blocked a couple punts. They executed some really good fake punts throughout the season again this season. So I think that there is more good than bad, but the bad was really ugly there for a couple weeks throughout the season.
I'm right with you. I did the same thing just because we don't know that much about Charlie Partridge as a Notre Dame football coach. So that's why he has to come slotted in last. I'm not going to repeat everything you said about Marty. He from a schematic standpoint, I think he's excellent. I think the punting did get better because they stopped rolling him out. They just let him stand there and punt, which made for more success, which I think anybody in the country could have told him, like, stop rolling him out. He can't do it. And they had returns for touchdowns. They had the fakes. They had all of those things. It was great. The part when you hire Marty Biaggi that you think is going to be solid is the place kicking, because he was a place kicker and it's not the case. And so that's why he falls to the number 3 hole for me. He's got that part has to get shorn up.
They're just lucky. Well, I mean, you could say that the extra point operation cost them the Texas A&M game, or at least the opportunity to go to overtime. We saw how important field goals were in the playoff run late in the season last season. Notre Dame is lucky that they didn't run into those situations with where their kicking operation was last season.
Right. So obviously we're going to round it out with Charlie Partridge. We'll see what happens with Charlie. And then also the question mark of who's going to be the defensive backs coach. I guess he really lands in the 5 spot because we don't know who he is.
Unless it's just some like renowned stud that's just been,
Nick Saban's going to come off. He's going to coach DBs at Notre Dame. So you heard it here first, folks.
Marcus Freeman left a real good impression on game day with him.
Right. He's going to come coach DBs for Notre Dame.
That is his stomping ground, though. I'm pretty sure that's where he started.
Oh, I'm aware. And he coached DBs when he was the head coach at Alabama as well. And so, hey, awesome. Come on back, baby. Come on over. I'm sure his wife would love just to let him come up to sunny South Bend as opposed to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. But anyway, so that's our ranking for defensive coaches. We were going to put them all together and rank them 1 through 9. We don't have enough time, and that's okay. Maybe we'll revisit it during rapid fire, but it's the top of the hour. We got to get out of here. We got to hit a break, and then we'll come back with some rapid fire. You are listening to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat along with IrishBreakdown.com. Welcome back to Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat, along with IrishBreakdown.com. I was just informed by our producer, Ty, that we're not going till 6:30. We're going to 6:20. And so we got 15 minutes to bring this puppy home, Jesse. And so this
rapido fire.
You're going to have to we're going to have to really go extra fast here on rapid fire. And I was like, you know what? We're not really going to have enough to talk about to get through the show today. Not the case. And so we're going to get through this thing. We're going to have some fun with it. We've got some rapid fire questions all queued up. If you guys want to answer the questions as we go along in the chat, by all means, do that. You can find that chat on YouTube. Just search for Irish Breakdown or WSBT. I think both of them are on there. You can join the chat either way. A lot of chat about the Steelers going on in the chat right now. And
I want to say, because I know my dad is listening.
Okay.
A rapid fire topic I'd like to get to when all the dust settles and all these head coaching vacancies are filled. I want to do a report card. Every team that filled in their new head coach this off season, I want to do a report card A through F and give them their grades, because I think there's some very head scratching decisions so far.
That's fair. That is fair.
And I don't want to spend too much time because we got to freaking get going on this fire, baby.
We do, but you're not wrong. And you guys are more the NFL experts. So that would be a good rapid fire probably for when the two of you are on. But yeah, there's some definite interesting things going on there. So anyway, all right, rapid fire. Here we go. Sean was nice enough to drop a couple in here. So that's always fun. The headset Indiana head coach Curt Cignetti wore in the national championship game is now officially up for auction. What's something you can comment on that part if you want, because that belongs a whole discussion all by itself. But what's something that you've seen Marcus Freeman wear or use on the sideline that you would bid on?
Yeah, very interesting that the national championship headset. One of my friends, I can't remember what it is, but one of my buddies that lives up in Michigan, big Michigan fan that I went to the Lions game with, he had something from Harbaugh that he had signed from their national championship year. I can't remember what it is. I'll have to ask him, but I would want Marcus. You know how he's always writing stuff down during the game on that little like paper pad. I'd want that laminated from the national championship game and for him to sign it. That's what I would pick, just to see.
You just want to know what he's writing.
His thought process throughout the game.
Because he writes all game long.
Right. And so I just want to see the thought process through the national championship and kind of like read them and try to relive it. You know what I mean? Kind of watch the game, because I'm sure he puts down timestamps and just kind of try to be in the mind of Marcus Freeman and what it's like trying to coach in a national championship game that you eventually win. So I would get that paper, notepad, whatever. I'd laminate it and I'd have him sign it.
Nice. You know what? That's well thought out. I dig that. I don't want like a head. Like, what are you going to do with a headset? You going to wear it around? Like that seems odd to me.
You're going to put it on a head mannequin in your house?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Cignetti head mannequin.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I don't know what anybody would do with a headset. Look, everybody always talks about Marcus Freeman's fit, what he's wearing, and like how they can't find what he's wearing anywhere. Like, I just want access to anything that he wears at practice or on game day that's white. There you go. That's what I want. Like hoodies, pullovers, all of the different things. I want just the white.
You're going the apparel.
I'm going apparel. I don't want him to sign it. That would ruin it. I want to actually wear it for my own good. So that's what I'm going to go with.
If I would go apparel, I'd ask for one of his hats during a rainy game.
Yeah. He's got style, man. Like every time I see him, whether it's a Notre Dame function, whether it's a Penn function, whether it's whatever, he's got style, man. I aspire to his style. So I can't pull off what he pulls off, but I like when he puts the white on. So that's where I'll go with that one. All right, here we go. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Mark Zachary has left the Notre Dame men's basketball team to rejoin the football team, not for spring practice, but for winter conditioning.
I'm going to be positive here. I'm going to say it's strategic. I think that, they had some depth at the guard position, or they had depth issues at the guard position. after Burton went down, and basically how could they get an extra body, at least get him into practice, see how he moves, that sort of stuff. But I think, and this is just my speculation, I think that there's probably more answers on Burton. I think that they've maybe developed, some of those other guys at the guard positions that they actually recruited to come in and play guard. And probably too, and I didn't want to lead with this, he just probably wasn't as good as he used to be, like I personally, my freshman year of college only played football. And then my sophomore year, I started playing baseball again. But that break between the end of my senior year till basically, winter of my sophomore year, you lose a beat, and whether you think you always got it. I mean, sure, some guys like Hall of Fame baseball players, they're always going to get it. They're always going to have
There's
it.
There's
right?
still timing that needs to come back, though.
Right.
Baseball.
And so I just think that they needed him in a pinch, and he served his purpose. He was a security blanket. And so I think it was really strategic at the end of the day.
I just think it was, you went positive, and I appreciate that. I'm going to say it was and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it was a failed experiment. Like it didn't work.
You think that's exactly what it was?
Yeah, I just think it was a failed experiment. And he realizes, he's got an opportunity to potentially play for the football team. He wasn't playing for the basketball
team. And that's the thing.
Team.
People don't realize the commitment that you're taking away from your full-time day one job there.
Right. That's exactly right. And so he has an opportunity to play a significant role on the football team in 26. And he was never going to play a significant role on the basketball team. I think that was made pretty clear. And this is a basketball team that's not that great. And he still wasn't going to be playing a significant role. And I think, look, he gave it a shot. I give a lot of credit to Freeman and Shrewsbury for allowing him to take a shot. It just didn't work out. And that's okay. That's not even a negative take. It just didn't work out. And now he's going to go back to football where he can focus on getting ready for the 26th season. And that's okay. That's okay. You're allowed to do things that don't work out. You know what I mean? And to know now he knows. He knows, like, okay, you know what?
There's kind of closure in it at the end of the day.
That's exactly right. He knows that, okay, I'm a college football player. I'm not a college basketball player. Okay, cool. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. All right. This was a fun one. So this kind of happened right around the time that we started the show yesterday. And we didn't really have an opportunity to talk about it yesterday, although I really wanted to. Shedeur Sanders was named as a replacement to the Pro Bowl roster yesterday. I'm just going to leave this wide open to you, Jesse. Buy or sell this as the right move.
So, you know me, I've always kind of got some spin on some things. I don't buy this as the right move. There are clearly quarterbacks in the AFC that are better than Shedeur Sanders.
Sure, like all of them.
And I think where I'm at is I am selling that. And I'm selling people blowing it up like the Pro Bowl rosters are something that's meaningful. It's just a bunch of guys who get together in warm weather. They go out there, they have some fun. They don't even throw the pads on really anymore. It's all about skill competitions, that sort of stuff. It's just, does he probably deserve to be there? No. Does he deserve his name to be run through the mud because someone else decided that he's going to be a replacement? No. Does he still have a ton of talent, and might it be exciting to kind of see that stuff, on display at the Pro Bowl? Yeah, at least I think so. But that's just where I'm at. Like, it's just such a story that's going to get blown out of proportion because if you ask everyone, the NBA, the NFL, All-Star games, Pro Bowls, they've just been a joke the last decade plus. And so at the end of the day, who really cares? The same people who are talking about, oh, it's this and that, are the same people who are complaining about Shedeur Sanders. It's just a glorified exhibition skills competition. So I'm not going to waste much energy on it. And I mean, I'm rooting for Shedeur. So like maybe there's a difference in that as well.
Yes, that's probably true. I know he lives in your city, but he's not going to be knocking on your door anytime soon. So you're okay there. Look, this tells you exactly what the Pro Bowl has become. Can we at least agree on that? Like, they want eyeballs on these skills challenges and the flag football game that they're going to play. Like whatever they're doing for the Pro Bowl, they want eyeballs on it. Shedeur Sanders is going to bring eyeballs.
Right.
Who cares that he has the 5th worst QBR since they started keeping track 20 years ago? It doesn't matter. That means that if he's the 5th worst, that means that you are the 6th worst, or like that's so bad. There's like over 600 quarterbacks that have been ranked. He's the 5th worst, and yet he gets to go to a Pro Bowl. So you can get hung up on that. You can get hung up on the fact that he probably shouldn't be recognized amongst the elite of the NFL. That's all true, and that's great. If this was anybody else, it wouldn't be a story.
Right.
It's who he is. I get that. And again, it's what this Pro Bowl thing is
turned
now,
into.
Right? Like 20 years ago, they're not asking Shedeur Sanders to be on the Pro Bowl roster. They're just not. There would have been 10 other AFC quarterbacks that they would have gone to.
Well, that's my other question, Vince, is you don't know what guys they went to, and they're like, you know what? I don't want to go. I've already got a vacation with my family. I've got this and that. You know what I mean? So, like, how many people declined before they had to go to Shedeur? Right. And, of course, Shedeur was like,
why not?
I'll be there.
Right. He's going to get more throws off in the Pro Bowl skills challenge than he did all season. You know what I mean? So why not? Why not? So it's ridiculous, but so is the Pro Bowl. So they kind of go hand in hand.
That's right. Yeah, it's just going
when I first saw it.
Really on schedule?
Yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, what? This is ridiculous. And then I was like, they're out in shorts on the sand. Like, they just invited Shedeur to come to their beach party. Like, that's what they did. You know what I mean? So it's like, whatever. It's whatever. It's not something to get all broken up about. Speaking of not getting broken up about stupid stuff, Diego Pavia measured in at 5'9" tall and 197 pounds at the Senior Bowl. On the Vanderbilt roster, it says 6 foot, 207 pounds. Is this a thing?
I mean, you guys called me out a couple of weeks ago for listing myself as 6 foot as a guy who's been stuck at 5'10" for, however long. I don't think that's the height one. I'm really not concerned about. Everyone adds an inch or two,
Always.
And so I think what's more of a talking point is, did he go on so much of a bender between the end of season and now, between, the Heisman and celebrating with his boys, and that he lost 10 pounds? Did he lose all that muscle because, he was going on some benders with his buddies, celebrating the Heisman, telling everyone he's the best quarterback ever? You got to be pretty inebriated to say some stuff like that on national television consistently. So, and post about it on your Instagram and just screaming it to the world. So, there's definitely in-season shape and there's out-of-season shape.
100%.
But to drastically lose it the way he did, and a guy who's preparing for a Senior Bowl, who's preparing for an NFL draft, as someone who's undersized and those sort of things, you would think he'd be a little bit more on top of it. And so that's where I'd be a little bit more disappointed is, man, the season's, you're like 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks removed from the season, and you're already – you know what I mean? Kind of letting it go a little bit. Like, you need to be, if you're the best quarterback, like, you think Tom Brady wouldn't be, preparing for the draft and going all in. Like, that's the difference. He wants to be great, but I don't think he does the things to be great, but he wants to tell everyone he's great.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Like quarterback from Texas A&M a few years ago that got drafted to your city.
Yeah.
Look, he can't control how tall he is, so I'm not going to give the guy garbage for that. Like, I wish I was 6 foot tall. You know what I mean? Like, it says 5'10" on my driver's license. That's not real. So it is what it is, right? And so he can't control that. There are things that he can control, and he's not doing a good job of controlling it. That's my biggest issue. Like, if you're not going to measure up technically like he doesn't, then you've got to measure up in the other ways. And right now, he's not checking those boxes.
No,
it's not a good look, man.
It's not a good look. And that's the thing. It's just not a good look. No matter what he's doing right now. It's just not a good look for a guy who's trying to overcome the image he's painted. And again, like, he's undersized. He'd be Drew Brees almost out there.
Exactly. And that's a problem. So, and he doesn't check the boxes Drew Brees was checking, by the way. So, all right, well, we're going to get out of here. Men's basketball for Notre Dame tips off against Virginia here at the top of the hour. Pregame is next on WSBT.
Hit that like button like Vince uses declarative statements.
Oh, yeah. I started that up. Apparently, the Wi-Fi is working on the plane. There it is. Because we're still live on the video side. So there you go. Eventually, we're going to end the stream. I'm going to end it.